Good morning, everyone. We had a great time last year together at FG Time 2020. This year, I have to record my message, but comes 2022, I hope we meet again in Warsaw. The title of the talk this year is What Benefits Will Network Economy Bring to Society? Another title that I could have chosen for this talk is From a Product to a Service Economy, and I will explain that a bit later. We all attend lots of presentations about amazing digital technologies. And the message that I would like to deliver today is not at all disparaging for technologies, but it's to say that AI alone, 5G alone, IoT alone, these are all remarkable inventions, but alone in the network economy, they are absolutely worthless. What will bring benefits to society are ecosystems. And what I would like to give you a few examples, and we'll talk about the challenges. But let's first look at the bright side of life, if you like. Healthcare. Our countries face aging population and also, sadly, a shortage of medical workers. The World Health Organization believes that 10 years from now, there will be a shortage of 18 million medical workers, 18 million worldwide. What can we do about it? One solution is to try to cure patients at home, to cater for them remotely. So it means continuous healthcare linking the hospital and the home. It means that IoT will take the form of electronic bracelets and other sensors. It means that doctors will not wait for calls from patients before dispatching the ambulance. They will use predictive analytics and they will act preemptively. And remember, doctors and nurses are very busy, so they don't need more data that they cannot handle. What they need is information at the point of action. And what they really need is for this information to be seamlessly integrated into the screen and other equipment that they use, so that it's seamlessly integrated into their daily routine, if you like. Another sectors where hopefully digital ecosystems will emerge is farming. And the good news is that Poland is one of the youngest farming population in Europe, I learned. And this is really ideal to embrace the digital revolution and build new ecosystems. You can use drones to reduce pesticides. You can use automation to address the shortage of manpower that you also face in farming. But I'd like to give you an anecdote that comes from the Netherlands about milk production. The only difference between a cow that produces 30 liters of milk per day and one that is producing only 10 liters is the health of the animal. So some clever Dutch guys develop an app. It's called IDA, you can Google it. And what they've done is they've equipped the cows with sensors, And the AI system, after a while, is able to detect what the cow is doing. Is the cow eating, drinking, resting? What is the temperature of the cow? And plenty of other parameters. So today, the farmers using the system are able to predict early, and they're able to act preemptively, preventively on any disease emerging. And the result is staggering. It's an increase of 30% in the dairy production of the farm using it. Education is yet another sector where new digital ecosystems should hopefully emerge. We all learn in different ways. Some of us learn by reading, some of us learn by listening. I learned the hard way by having to produce something, for example, writing an essay or a text, a report. And we all know that. And the paradox is that still today education is very much one size fits all. While we now have the means to personalize education, to make it fit the needs of every individual. And it's not at all about replacing teachers. It's very much about blended learning. How can we And it's neither about the lonely experience where the poor student is left alone in front of his screen. It's really about a lot of interaction within the community with those learning. Alors, what is true for students is also true for employees. So many companies today are sending their staff for 2 or 3 days of training per year instead of engaging into continuous learning. Energy, another major sector of our societies, of our economies. The good news is the cost of solar and wind energy is continuously coming down. But greener energy means a decentralization of energy generation, and this creates major challenges for the operators in charge of the transport and the distribution of electricity. These guys have to constantly worry about keeping a balance between the supply and demand of electricity, otherwise you know what happened, there is a blackout. So here again we need advanced secure digital technologies to sort out that problem. But we also need to invent daring new ecosystem whereby, for example, citizens would have the ability to sell to the grid electricity stored on the battery of their car, where needed, not necessarily on a daily basis. The examples I gave are merely illustration of a broader phenomenon that we see in society, which is very much the dematerialization of activities. And if you're not convinced, think of your collection of vinyl and CDs, which are all, I'm sure, now on your handset and in the cloud. So basically, every product becomes a service, is what I'm trying to say. And this is great because, in a way, it increases our power as societies to solve physical problems. Think of the shortage of agriculture workers, for example. But it may also lead to making non-physical problems much worse than they were in the past. And I'll give you a few examples in a minute. So the real challenge is to remove roadblocks to make this digital ecosystem blossom. And in my opinion, we need to do 2 things. 1, focus on incentives. Not enough talks about incentive. I'll show you that. 2, alleviate fear. So incentives. I'm a very good math teacher. During the pandemic with distance learning, I noticed that the level of my students went down. That's a general phenomenon. Why would I change my old methods when I go back to school after the pandemic? I'm a doctor. I love my job, but I've got to feed my family as well. Today, I'm paid for every medical act that I perform. Tomorrow, if you tell me that I've got to do everything remotely, I don't see my patients so often, who's going to compensate for my potential loss of revenue? I'm a telco, and along with other fellow European operators across the European Union, I invest roughly 50 billion euro a year on upgrading, modernizing my fixed and mobile networks. And I do that in spite of the fact that in the last 15 years, my revenues have been continually coming down. So why should I invest in full 5G capabilities? I'm not talking about, installing an upgrade, the 5G software upgrade on my 4G base station, but going for the full 5G suite. The edge computing, the small cells, the slicing. Why would I do that? What's in it for me? Again, a problem of incentive. And the response to all these legitimate questions can only be found in the development of credible ecosystem that offer ways for all the investors to monetize their investment. I work for a large corporation, and I'm an employee, and I'm told about a new program to implement digital technologies. What's in it for me? And again, if I'm part of a lifelong learning program, it's really part of my daily life year after year. I'm much more likely to see that change in my organization as an opportunity where I'll be able to use my new skills. In other words, I know what's in it for me. I see clearly the incentive. I manage a company. I think that global warming is really an issue. I think about it every day. But of course, what can I do? I'm just a small company, a medium-sized company. why should I change my behavior? And again, it's a matter of nudging people, for government, society to nudge people in the right direction. It's a mix of cajoling and coercion, you know. As economists that say, it's a mix of subsidies, tax breaks to encourage energy savings, and at the same time penalties, energy taxes to discourage CO2 emission. And in this respect, I'm delighted, I don't know whether you saw that the price of a ton of carbon is now reached €40 on the ETS market. Of course, we need to quickly sort out this business of the cross-border carbon tax. Focus on incentive. And the last example I'll give you is take finance. There are today in Europe huge amount of capital with negative yield. Even, I mean, we're talking trillions of euros. Even Italy has been able to borrow at negative rates lately. And that was before Mario Draghi was appointed Prime Minister. And if you take the major infrastructure project useful for society, you think about green energy, better railway systems, the question is, how can we package, from a finance point of view, how can we package these mega projects in ways that clarify the risks, you know, and make these projects investable? That's the magic word, investable by infrastructure front. There are fantastic opportunities in this field, and again, it's a matter of inventing new ecosystem. Alors, enough on the incentives. I'm checking the time. A quick word now on my point number 2, alleviating the fears. And I'll keep it short for the sake of time. I'm a farmer. How can I be sure that John Deere will not own my data and exploit them, you know, to my detriment? Or will it be like Monsanto, would it be a repeat of what Monsanto did with the special seeds and the pesticides and all that? All what that costs to farmers. So here it's really a question of building trust. And I know that FG Time is co-organized by the Chamber of Commerce. I think there is a key role for Chamber of Commerce that can reach out to SMEs in particular and to play a role of evangelist in all these matters. There is also a lot of work, and I'll finish with that, for legislators and regulators, and the list is endless, so I'll just pick and choose a few examples. Data sharing, and we had yesterday a session on Gaia X. How can we avoid data hoarding, sitting on your data? How can we incentivize public, government as well, public and private data holders to share data and maximize its use for society? You know, how can we establish trusted third party that can act as honest broker between data holders and hosts and those who could make good use of those data? Another major issue is ethical rules for the use of AI. You know, if you look at Asian citizens, they are really technophile. You know, there is a new technology, they want it, no question. Europeans, unfortunately, are often leaning a bit more on the technophobic side. So we must absolutely build strong ethical rules for the use of AI. Otherwise, we will have a backlash. You know, there will have a rejection of those technologies by society, and that will bring us to square one. We will lose a lot of time. So there is a big job there to develop ethical rule, and again, a big job of evangelization of society on this front. By the way, technologies like facial recognition in the public domain should probably be put aside for a few years while we clear our legal and ethical framework in this respect. Product liability, another major legislative initiative, things of the self-driving cars a few years from now. There is a crash, who is liable? Again, major piece of work for the legislator. Security, I mean, you saw in the papers last week the recent SolarWinds attack in the US, apparently the largest and most sophisticated attack in the world ever. Microsoft believed that there were not less than 1,000 Russian engineers cooperating on the attack. Our legislators are working on the NIS2 directive. ENISA, our European Security Agency, is churning out technical specification for cloud, for 5G, and soon for other fields. I'll stop there. I could have filled my speaking time just listing for you all the regulatory and legislative initiative in the pipeline. They are really necessary. But stay tuned on FG Time, and I'm sure all these topics and more will be discussed because they're all on the agenda. Thank you very much.